The story begins with there was a lesson in the classroom. The blurry silhouettes of school children. Someone is persistently trying to wake up Boulayer. The boy is half asleep, still dozing. His eye is slightly open. The students are laughing uncontrollably. They think Boulayer is a stupid asshole, and enjoy the fact that the jerk will be scolded again. Boulayer suddenly left the realm of Morpheus, his eyes filled with wild fright. The boy could not understand whether he was in a dream or in the real world. Suddenly, someone tugged Boulayer's sleeve. "Who is it?" The boy heard the voice of his desk mate. She whispered fearfully to Boulayer that his teacher Boulani was calling him again. Suddenly, the boy saw a long-legged, majestic beauty. She stared menacingly at Boulayer. The boy broke into a sweat with fear. Belle squinted her eyes slyly. She said wryly that Boulayer had slept quite sweetly and had lost his sense of time and space. The boy is shocked. He's teary-eyed, breathing hard. He didn't even realize he was facing a teacher. "Iron grip on the ear. Oh, it hurts." The strict teacher shouted that no sleeping was allowed in her very important math class. She mercilessly dragged the frightened pupil by the ear to the blackboard to answer. The boy wriggled in pain. A young misfit with chalk in his hand froze in fear at the blackboard. Behind him, the teacher was burning with her own anger. She tried to scorch the student with her fiery gaze. The boy thought hard, putting his fingers to his forehead. Suddenly, a clever thought appeared in the mischievous boy's mind. He finally realized that he was faced with a very difficult task. There are a myriad of frightening numbers on the board. How do we solve this problem? The teacher decided to severely punish the prankster for sleeping in math class. She told him to solve a difficult task on his own and give the correct answer in the next lesson. Boulayer was burning with shame. The classmates laughed wildly and persisted in thinking that Boulayer was an idiot. They were sure that the boy could not even solve the problem in 3 days because he had absolutely no mathematical ability. Boulayer was serene, slightly thoughtful. The teacher noticed a certain self-confidence in the boy. She ironically called him a smart scientist. Boulayer began to write confidently on the blackboard. His hand did not tremble. The teacher froze with surprise. She could not believe her eyes. Bouliani was shocked that Boulayer had solved the difficult problem correctly. The boy quietly excused himself to the restroom. The bewildered teacher allowed him to leave the classroom. The classmates were confused. They thought that Boulayer had guessed the right answer. He was just lucky. The teacher was carefully considering the solution of the problem by the careless student. Her eyes mingled with horror and astonishment. Boulayer's answer is absolutely correct. He wrote everything clearly and correctly on the board. Boulayer was rushing down the hall. He resented the fact that even the teacher had spent hours solving a simple problem. A powerful discharge of electricity, a blinding bright glow. Our hero seems to have traveled to another reality. And this is Chen Luo, a very ordinary math teacher. He's devoted his whole life to science, completely devoted to math. Chen Luo had worked long and hard as a teacher. He was about to receive the highest academic rank very soon, but instead, he was suddenly transported to another world. Boulayer was puzzled. Why had he traveled to another world during his brief sleep during the exam? He even called the great scientist Newton for help. He asked him to explain what had happened. The proud scientist was silent and immovable. The apple must have hit him hard on the head. The cold-blooded Chen Luo almost immediately realized that he had been transformed into the body of a schoolboy loser Boulayer. And the future scientist also realized that he had fallen into a world where mathematics is highly respected. But they don't know it very well. Chen Luo could not understand why in a foreign world the simplest task takes so long to solve and difficult to add digit to digit. In his world, even junior high school students could easily and quickly cope with such tasks. Meanwhile, Boulayer was wondering how to survive in his new world. He couldn't go back, so he decided to become a great mathematician in another reality. Chen Luo was not confused. He decided to become a consummate mathematician in the parallel world. He walked confidently down the corridor. Chen Luo became bewildered. A faceless silhouette of a girl appeared from around the corner. "What is that? Was that a ball lightning explosion?" The boy and the girl flew apart in a flash. Vaguely visible ceiling, dormer window, absurd. The world is turned upside down. Chen Luo barely woke up. He tried to slur his words. The words were stuck in his throat. Whose beautiful ant waist is that? It's all blurred in the bright light. Chen Luo's hand is on the stranger's knee. Their faces are almost side by side. Chen Luo apologizes wildly. Suddenly, the young boy recoiled from the girl. He was disconsolate and blubbered. An unexpected helping hand. To whom is it extended? It's so romantic. Chen Luo's cheeks were covered with a blush. He embarrassedly apologized to the girl. He held out his hand to help her up. But the sweet fury exploded with frenzy, with anger. She shouted and glared menacingly at the boy. Chen Luo was dumbfounded, surprised. He even felt like the girl had seen his real self. Therefore, he asked if she knew him. The exasperated girl remembered how a mischievous boy had pushed her at an important admission ceremony. Then she had found herself in a very indecent position and had been disgraced. This memory stirred her up even more. The girl thought that the boy had caught up with her again and pushed her on purpose. She called him a pervert in anger. A frightened Chen Luo realized that he was in terrible trouble. But why was it his fault? Wasn't it the girl who ran into him? Chen Luo tried to solve the problem peacefully. He began to explain to the girl that he was not chasing her at all. She was the one who came at him and knocked him down. The frightened Chen Luo clenched his fists hard. He froze in a fighting, intimidating posture. He was ready to defend his righteousness to the end. Meanwhile, the girl focused and looked like an enraged goddess of vengeance, Arinia. She summoned the fire element of her world. A sweat appeared on Chen Luo's face. He opened his mouth in surprise and tried to understand what was going on. Chen Luo was not at all frightened by his rival's magical abilities. He called the girl naive. The guy started joking around and making jokes. He decided to demonstrate his magical powers. He called on the ancient god of darkness for help. The devil's pentagram burst into flames of hell. Creepy and exciting at the same time. The girl's hand was filled with flames. Chen Luo was perplexed. Just in case, he assumed a formidable fighting stance. Instantly, the rival launched an attack. She called the guy a jerk and directed deadly streams of fire at him. Chen Luo was doused in cold sweat. His face was a burnt, gloomy face. In such a miserable state, the guy realized, magic is the main basis for moving to another world. Chen Luo was out of his mind. He had just moved to a parallel world, and they were already throwing fireballs at him. The completely defenseless Chen Luo is enveloped in the flames of hell. The ruthless girl throws fireballs at the poor man and calls him shameless. Chen Luo's common sense kicked in. He began to think about how to appease his fierce opponent. Guy decides to be a real man. Desperately tries to find ways to reconcile. Claims he was wrong and apologizes to the girls. The stranger stopped, but there was still a flame in her hand. She didn't look like she was going to compromise. The girl was not satisfied with mere apologies. She was determined to continue throwing thunder and lightning. The guy was gone in a flash. There was only his phantom. The stunned girl was alone with her uncontrollable rage. The hysteria never left the restless girl. She was annoyed that she had lost sight of her object of hatred. Chen Luo is running as fast as he can, out of harm's way. He would be the envy of any sprinter. The amazed boy could not fully understand and accept the new world. How magic and science could coexist peacefully in this world. This question did not leave him and troubled him. Chen Luo's wide-open eyes were a mixture of fear and surprise. He was an erudite guy, but he had a hard time understanding what was going on in the foreign world. Chen Luo's head was bursting with terrible pain and innumerable thoughts that tormented his mind and soul. It seemed that the guy began to lose his sanity and didn't even realize who he was, where his head and the rest of his body were. Chen Luo's consciousness was clouded. He was rapidly sinking into an eerie, pitch-black darkness. A handsome boy in an ancient nobleman's outfit hesitantly calls out to his father. "Who is this boy? Where is his daddy?" The boy calls louder and more desperately for his daddy, but there is silence in response. A girl with a little boy bowed her head dejectedly near a huge mansion. The boy with the tiny girl brought them the sad news. The general had given his life for the motherland. The man handed the girl and her son a commemorative box. He asked them not to be too sad and to move on with their lives. A girl and a little boy at the entrance to a huge house. It looks like they have started a new stage of life. They are learning to live in a new way. Near the girl and the boy, the servants gossip incessantly. They claim the new servant is from an aristocratic family. After the death of her husband, she has become very poor and has to work hard to earn a piece of bread. Joyful son meets his smiling mom on the front porch. He tells her the amazing news. He has been accepted into the Shandanasa Academy. A doting mother asks her son Boulayer to be diligent and do well in the academy. The boy begs her to calm down. He considers himself an adult and believes that he can always stand up for himself. Mom's eyes are full of tears of joy and sadness, strongly moved. Her dear son has grown up. A book is one of the important sources of our knowledge. Reach out to that source. Give food to your brain. Don't get too wrapped up in the book world, vain fantasies. Don't lose your footing. A tired Boulayer struggles to get a book from the top shelf in an ancient library. The bald ancient sage hurries the boy and asks him to work harder. Then he will let him spend the night in the library. The purposeful Boulayer stayed up all night. He read books diligently, enthusiastically, and devoured knowledge avidly. Restless Boulayer decided to radically change his life. He was sure that he would return his family to its former honor, respect, and glory. The diligent Boulayer tries desperately to create even a single fireball, all in vain. The disciples laughed gloatingly at the young mage. Boulayer's mind was filled with the angry words of the disciples. He is a poor non-pure-blooded aristocrat, a mediocrity. He won't even be taken as a servant, and he's about to be expelled from the academy. In his mind, Boulayer apologized to his parents for not having any talents and knowledge. Suddenly, a pretty classmate wearing Mo-Li glasses appeared in front of the boy. She was scared and was trying to understand what happened to her classmate. Boulayer woke up on the street. He wondered how Mo-Li could have found him here. Mo-Li asked how Boulayer was feeling and informed him that the mage theory lesson was already underway. The boy didn't even think that someone could be worried about him. The girl helped Boulayer to his feet. He embarrassedly thanked her for it. An elderly teacher tells the children that there are 4 magical elements in the world, and all magic is based on these elements. Inquisitive Boulayer realized that there are born magicians and ordinary people in the world. Magic and science are quite important, and the academy is the door to real magic. The teacher was yelling furiously, or rather, he diligently explained that the foundation of the world was earth, fire, wind, and water. These were the 4 magic elements. The restless teacher continued to enthusiastically tell me that mages use spells, hand gestures, and spiritual power. This is the real magic. However, to use magic, you need the right abilities. The main entrance to the academy. It is in this educational institution that one can obtain the innermost magical and mathematical knowledge. This is the realm of magic and science. The children are incredibly jubilant that the lesson is over. They are terribly annoyed by the old teachers who give boring lectures on textbooks. The elderly magic teacher had finished his lecture. He was about to leave the auditorium. Someone's hand touched the teacher's mysterious lecture notes. What happened? Couldn't the teacher rest even during the break? After the lecture, the annoying Boulayer approached the magic teacher. The old man asked what question the boy had come to him with this time. There was burning interest in Boulayer's eyes. The boy was burning with curiosity. He asked if it was possible to master magic even a little without natural ability. The gray-haired teacher looked sympathetically at Boulayer. He was fed up with the boy who asked him the same question every time after a lecture. The tired teacher hurried to get out of the classroom. On the way, he once again repeated to the boy that it was impossible to control magical elements without natural abilities. In Boulayer's classroom, he was in a dark state of mind. He heard the students mocking him again. They persisted in thinking of him as a talentless dreamer. Someone's hand on the boy's shoulder, and someone said it wouldn't hurt if Boulayer didn't graduate from the academy. The gloating laughter of the classmates did not subside. One student wryly said that Boulayer would work on his father's estate, and Tobai offered to share a piece of bread with the loser at any time. The boy was confused. Tobi seemed to be his only friend. But why the hypocrisy? There's a wide smile on Tobi's face. It's not clear what she's hiding. Is it a sly smile or a sincere smile? Mo-Li suddenly appeared in the classroom. Tobi said a friendly goodbye to Boulayer and hurriedly retreated. The astonished boy thought that Mo-Li wanted to say something to him. But she must have held back. Boulayer began to realize that the girl was too worried about him. Suddenly, Mo-Li started running out of the classroom, and on the way said that teacher Boulani was waiting for Boulayer after class. The boy said he was already on his way to see the teacher. Boulayer sat silently in the classroom and thought about the mysterious Mo-Li. This girl was acting suspiciously strange. She seemed to want to tell him something all the time. Boulayer's sadness was boundless. He believed that he had excellent knowledge in math, but this knowledge was useless without magic ability. Hands are very necessary to control the magical elements. But will this particular hand ever be able to work magic? The stubborn boy decided not to give up. He concentrated, and once again called upon the element of peace fire. Will these hands be able to master the fireball technique? Will there ever be a flame in them? A radiant smile shone on Boulayer's face. Perhaps he felt some metamorphosis in his body. Suddenly, Boulayer felt an incredible surge of spiritual strength. All around him was a powerful, stunning energy. Everything is in your hands. The important thing is not to be discouraged. It is also important to believe in yourself. The astonished Boulayer was enveloped in flames. Fire flickered in his eyes. Who had generated this fire? It seems that our long-suffering protagonist was able to light a fire, not only in his hands, but also in his heart. It looks like his future life will be very hot. A ball of fire in his hand. It has a lot of power and majesty in it. The stunned boy couldn't believe his eyes. Was his body really filled with magical powers? Our hero could not utter a word. When, where, and how did he become a magician? What fun balloon magic is. The boy looked happily at the fireball in his hand. You can play with the fireball all day long. No need for a ball or any other toy. Cool. A fireball can even replace the sun. It keeps you warm and lights up the room instead of a light bulb. A pensive Boulayer sat all alone in the auditorium. He thought only of the fireball. While traveling from one world to another, Boulayer's magical channels opened up, and he's only now finding out about it. Suddenly, the student remembered that he had to run to the teacher's office immediately. How could he have forgotten about it? Boulayer knocked on the door. He heard that he was invited to enter the teacher's office. The boy entered the office and introduced himself as Chen Luo, but he suddenly remembered that in the new world he was Boulayer. The boy's face turned red. I guess he was too embarrassed. The air was saturated with love vibes. The teacher was in a half-bent state. The guy clearly saw all her charms below the waist. Boulayer blushed and was terribly embarrassed. Why did the teacher make such a mockery of his fragile psyche? The teacher finally noticed the student's presence. She turned to face him and squinted her eyes flirtatiously. Is that what these picturesque hills are? How to respond to this landscape? The boy couldn't get over it. The teacher's charms knocked him for a loop. The nonchalant teacher asked me to ignore her. She always does math calculations standing in strange poses. The boy found the strength to ask why he had been called to the teacher's office. The animated teacher asked the boy to sit down. But Boulayer was still terrified and embarrassed. For a certain time, he could not even move from his seat. Boulayer sat silently at the teacher's desk, with his eyes wide open. The teacher gave him a pen and paper for some reason. A math problem is written on a sheet of paper. The teacher asked the boy to solve it. Boulani was about to leave the study for a while. She asked the boy to take his time solving the problem. Suddenly, the teacher froze with her mouth wide open. She had gotten the right answer. Boulayer had solved the problem in a matter of seconds. The surprised Boulani still couldn't believe her own ears. The nonchalant guy once again repeated the answer, which was absolutely correct. The teacher snapped out of her seat, or rather, she couldn't find her place from the intense excitement. The puzzled girl clung to the boy with a dead grip. She was eager to know how Boulayer was able to complete the task so quickly. After all, even she took too long and struggled to solve the task. The heated teacher brought her face close to the boy's face. She asked if Boulayer had solved this problem before. Boulani's face was covered with a blush. She affectionately asked the young genius to tell how he had managed to solve the problem so quickly. The confused boy could not resist the woman's charm. He agreed to tell the truth. The teacher rejoiced like a child. Her eyes sparkled with intense curiosity. And at this moment, Boulayer saw the teacher as a silly girl. The young scientist promptly bombed the teacher's calculation process. He argued that numbers don't have to be added one at a time. There are more efficient ways of solving problems. The teacher did get the math right, but she spent too much time calculating. The teacher's mind was full of questions. She was sure that there was only one way to solve the problem. The guy was no longer embarrassed. He smugly declared that Boulani was deeply mistaken. Suddenly, the student turned into a clever teacher. He began to explain that there is a second method of solving the problem. But first, we have to find a pattern. Boulayer was excitedly talking about a new way of solving the problem. He carefully wrote it all down on a piece of paper. Boulani became an obedient student, and Boulayer lectured tirelessly, inspiringly, and poured questions into the girl. The teacher turned out to be a very diligent and active student. She raised her hand and answered enthusiastically. The young genius praised his new student and asked her to sit back down. This made Boulani a little embarrassed. The boy couldn't stop. He seemed to be enjoying his role as a teacher. He kept telling me that there was multiplication in addition to addition. Boulayer continued to convince his student that his method of solution was more effective. The girl was silent and listened with great interest. The explanation shook Boulani greatly. She slowly began to realize that a problem could have several solutions. The inquisitive Boulani looked at the young teacher's notes. She concluded that the second solution method could be improved. The lively Boulayer praised his apprentice tirelessly, and he told her another secret. It turned out that calculations could be performed with the help of certain formulas. Formulas? What the hell is that? The teacher's brain was boiling, her mind was a mess. All the teacher's thoughts were confused. There was a complete program failure. The boy was once again convinced that elementary school math was very difficult for the world of magic. Strange, but true. The teacher didn't see the world around her. She was completely absorbed in herself. Suddenly, Boulani asked the boy if he had thought of a new method of solving the problem himself. The mischievous Boulayer laughed. He claimed that he had found a new way of calculation himself, although in fact, in his world, a famous scientist had made this discovery. The teacher was in awe and clung to the boy's hand. She called him a genius. Boulani leaned over the astonished Boulayer and asked him to continue to persevere in math. She was sure that the boy could become a brilliant scientist. The teacher was too close beside her student. The boy could even hear the girl's breathing. Boulayer almost died of creepy embarrassment. The unpredictable Boulani was too excited, and she didn't even try to hide her turbulent emotions. A secret plan seemed to be brewing in the teacher's mind, and she was silently, carefully thinking about it. Suddenly, the teacher stopped playing the silent game. Boulani cheerfully asked the boy if he wanted to become an outstanding mathematician. Capricious Boulayer began to protest. He didn't want to be a famous mathematician. The boy was passionate about being an outstanding magician. The stunned teacher couldn't understand why Boulayer flatly refuses to be a mathematician and suddenly wanted to be a magician. The teacher sweetly said that Boulayer had phenomenal math skills. It's a gift from the goddess Minerva. Yet the boy has absolutely no magical gift. The persistent Boulani claimed that math would help the boy get a very high position in society. And she was sure that was exactly what would happen. The energetic teacher wanted to encourage the boy. She was ready to do a lot to make math an integral part of her pupil's life. Boulayer was as unbreakable as a rock. He apologized to his mentor for his determination to be a mage. Our hero was sure that he could easily become a great mathematician in the world of magic. All he has to do is voice a couple of theories. The good guy had a guilty conscience. He could not afford to pass off other people's scientific discoveries as his own. He didn't want to transfer the knowledge of the great geniuses of his world to the world of magic. In the current situation, math was dust to Boulayer. In the new world, he wanted to be an all-powerful magician. The creative teacher did not let her student go for a long time. She offered to make a bet with him. The teacher reminded him that soon there would be a magic exam, and that was when it would be clear whether Boulayer would stay at the academy or not. The sullen boy became quite despondent. He was worried that he might fail the exam and be kicked out of the academy. The annoying teacher kept pestering him. She reminded him again and again that he had to pass the magic exam. Otherwise, he wouldn't become a magician. The boy looked at the teacher with interest. He tried to understand what she wanted from him. The teacher was in no hurry to say goodbye to the young genius. She went back to making a bet. The pesky Bouliani promised that she wouldn't persuade Boulayer to become a mathematician, but he must pass the magic exam. Then she would finally leave him in peace. But if Boulayer fails the exam, he will be a teaching assistant at the academy. At the same time, he would have to give up magic and help Bouliani study math for the rest of his life. The wily teacher was convinced that Boulayer would surely lose the bet. No one believed in the boy's magical abilities. But Boulayer bravely accepted the challenge. Where did he get such boldness, such self-confidence? Boulayer walked down the hallway in a reverie. He resented the teacher for being too stubborn and clingy. The image of the seductive teacher never left the boy. It stirred his imagination. The reminder of the bet was constantly playing in his head. The guy wanted to get all the dirty thoughts out of his head, so he decided to take up magic. A dazed Boulayer suddenly noticed the girl in the corridor. But it was too late, I guess. She was very close to him. The violent collision of two souls, bodies, fate intertwining. A girl and a boy flying in different directions. Why is the ground falling out from under my feet? And the laws of gravity don't apply. It's like déjà vu all over again. Boulayer must have been in a lot of pain. The pain clouded his mind. The frightened boy was trembling with fear, shame, and screaming wildly. A strange girl crashed into him, and instantly his hands felt the touch of this stranger's body. The enraged little fury instantly went on the attack. She pounded Boulayer mercilessly and called him a shameless man. But suddenly the young beastess stopped. She began to summon the fire element of her world. Creepy yet fun fireball magic. The stranger must have been pretty good at it. The frightened Boulayer didn't wait for the strong fireball magic to be tested on him. Therefore he quickly ran away and hid. The girl was annoyed that she didn't fully vent her anger on the shameless man. The boy's strong, quick feet are his guardian angels. This time they saved their master again and prevented him from turning into ashes, the lair of the dangerous and unpredictable servant of the goddess Minerva. It is not advisable for outsiders to enter. A broken Isabella is in Boulani's office. The teacher cannot understand the reason for the girl's deep sadness. The fragile Isabella reported that she had met a pervert at the academy twice that day. The teacher must have sympathized deeply with the pervert. The wretched man must have been born under a bad star if he was so often subjected to Isabella's wrath. The formidable girl boiled up. She promised to punish the pervert next time and throw a fireball at him. The girl's courage and determination pleased her mentor. But the fidgety Isabella could not dwell on her rage all the time. She moved on to the main issue. The temperamental girl was filled with pride. She had managed to solve the problem in only half an evening. She thought she could solve such problems faster than her teacher. The calm teacher did not deny that Isabella was faster at solving problems, but she pointed out that Boulayer did it in a minute. The sour-faced girl didn't believe the teacher's words. It's impossible to solve the problem so quickly. Where is this genius who can do such incredible miracles? The serene Bouliani reiterated that Boulayer only needed a minute to solve the problem. She confessed that she had never seen the boy's unique and efficient way of solving before. The teacher told her how to find the pattern of numbers, what, and how to multiply, and how to use the formula. Obviously, the huge portion of such intimate knowledge put Isabella in a stupor. Wild amazement, admiration, and burning envy swept over the arrogant girl. Could such a discovery have been made by a mere boy? The restless Isabella vigorously grasped the teacher's hand. She was eager to see the young genius. Apparently, Boulayer had become a real idol and object of envy for Isabella. She was no longer interested in anyone. She had only the great young mathematician in her thoughts. The tired teacher realized that Isabella was unstoppable, so she told her where to find the little genius. "I see the goal. I see no obstacles. Undaunted Isabella never gives up." The impudent girl unceremoniously flew into the classroom. She wanted to see Boulayer immediately, right away. A furious Isabella resolutely declared that she wished to see Boulayer at once, without delay. The startled to-be instantly sweated with fear. It smelled like gunpowder. "It hurts! Why pinch like that? What's my fault?" Boulayer sat quietly under the desk like a mouse. He asked with a pleading look not to reveal his current whereabouts. A friend in need. To-be lied that his classmate had left class to mind his own business. The rude young brigandess was indignant. She was angry that she couldn't find the young genius. Why had he gone somewhere else again? A disgruntled Isabella asked the students to tell Boulayer that she wished to see him immediately, although her request was more like an order. The sly Tobai smiled playfully. He vowed that he would definitely convey Isabella's request. Our hero is on a powder keg, one spark and it's not far from disaster. A bewildered to-be seemed to have lost all his words and thoughts. The look on his friend's face made it clear that Boulayer was in terrible trouble. The classroom is dead silent. It smells like kerosene. Everyone knows there's no escaping Isabella. Boulayer's eyes are full of terror. His spirit is confused. He inquired in a friend why his classmates were looking at him like he was dead. The saddened to-be could not find the words for a long time. He seemed even afraid to speak of what he had recently seen and heard. The overanxious friend begged for the whole truth. He wanted to know why Isabella was searching so fiercely for Boulayer. Boulayer finally learns that his stalker's name is Isabella. Now at least he knows the name of the person who gives him eternal life. Death. Sad Tobai looked sadly at his friend. Boulayer is so naive and has no interest in anything but books and part-time jobs. He doesn't even know who Isabella is. Who is this Isabella? Boulayer had never encountered such exalted and fanatical stalkers before. To-be told his friend that Isabella has tons of admirers, and they're ready to kill anyone who hurts their goddess. Boulayer reminded his friend that they were at Shandanasa Academy. He reminded his friend that they were at the Shandanasa Academy. Fatty To-be was surprised that his friend knew what their academy was called, so he decided to give him a surprise exam. To-be asked where their campus was located. Boulayer replied without hesitation that the said campus was located on Baker Avenue in Yabo City. The fat man's jaw dropped open. He was too surprised at his friend's deep knowledge. A revitalized Tobai realized that his crony wasn't so stupid. Then he said that the mayor of the said city of Yabo was Isabella's father. A shiver ran through Boulayer's body. He finally realized that he would not be punished. Boulayer began to cry out of hopelessness. He asked his friend if Isabella would forgive him if he asked for forgiveness. The fat man sullenly said that he shouldn't have conflicted with Isabella. Boulayer might be expelled from the academy because of this conflict. The arrogant schoolboy declared cheerfully that Boulayer was a typical loser, a mediocrity. The right thing to do is to get him kicked out of the academy. Badr was constantly hurting Boulayer. He was a handsome, narcissistic, cocky guy, and his friends were bastards. Fatty To-be was angered that Badr was hurting his friend, but Boulayer was in partial agreement with his offender. In all likelihood, he doubted that he would be able to pass the magic exam and stay in the academy. Certainly in this world, mages and scientists occupy an honorable place in society. And in the academy they study many different subjects, in particular, mathematics, history, philosophy. However, graduates of this prestigious institution must have at least some magical abilities. All second-year students must take a magic exam. Anyone who fails this exam will be expelled. The students thought that the magic exam was very easy to pass. However, the students were firmly convinced that even this easy exam Boulayer would not pass successfully, and this made them insanely happy. A pensive Boulayer began to realize why the teacher had made a bet with him. Absolutely no one believed in his magical abilities. Someone slammed his fist on the desk and shouted wildly, but the stiffened Boulayer continued to sit silent. He was wrapped up in sad, troubled thoughts. The angry Badr was furious that the talentless loser wasn't listening to him at all. Boulayer's calmness irritated him too much. The fierce assailant glared at the unlucky man, and he called the boy an impure orphan with pleasure. A furious Badr took Boulayer by the breast, and Fat To-be could no longer watch in silence as his faithful friend was insulted. The furious Tobai seemed to be ready to use his fists. He couldn't let anyone hurt his completely defenseless, peace-loving friend. The fat man's reaction really surprised Badr. He froze for a few seconds, and asked why To-be was interfering in this matter. The heavy Tobai shouted wildly that Boulayer was his friend and his friend's business was his business. The fat man was ready to throw himself into the fight. Badr's eyes glittered with anger and frustration. He said he would remember To Be's words and take revenge. An annoyed Batter decided to leave the class, but he promised that his revenge would be immediate and terrible. The inevitable fight never started. Batter and his friends left the auditorium. Boulayer did not receive another round of slaps. To Be is a real mystery to Boulayer, but at the critical moment, this fat man didn't hesitate to defend him. He is undoubtedly a great friend. A joyful Boulayer was proud of his friend. The boy asked To Be if he would protect him if Isabella threw fireballs. A smile finally appeared on To Be's face. He said that he was ready to protect his friend from Isabella's anger. After all, his friend could only be beaten by his own hand. Our hero has realized that he has a real friend, and with such a friend is not afraid to go into the fire and water. Although it's better not to go there. And here comes the long-awaited magic exam. The students will demonstrate their fireball control technique. Those who fail the exam will not be able to continue at the academy. During the exam, the teacher stated that fireballs were basic, elementary magic. He assumed that every student could handle this easy task. The task is quite simple. You have to get behind the line and hit the target. It's a cakewalk. The arrogant Batter was the first to pass the exam. The guy was overconfident and focused on the task at hand. Batter was unfazed. He ordered the fire element of the world to hear his command and come to him. A blinding flash. Batter's hand burst into a torrent of flame. Right in the bullseye. Batter smiles smugly. He passed the exam perfectly. The throwing of fireballs at the target continued. Linda also passed the exam successfully. The smug Batter looked contemptuously at his classmates. He must have been sure that he was no match for the fireball thrower. Batter was very happy. He was sure that Boulayer would leave the academy very soon. To Be was furious. At this moment, the fat man was like a ball of fire. He asked Batter to shut up. To Be will take the exam now. He looks like a balloon himself. Boulayer must be worried about his faithful friend. To Be raised his hand. Then he ordered the fire element of the world to come to him. The industrious fat man tried too hard. He was straining his spiritual powers. Suddenly, a tiny fireball like a firefly appeared. The fat man's balloon flew a snake. Will it reach its destination? To Be's tiny ball barely reached the target, and that was enough to pass the exam. The teacher looked sympathetically at To Be, but the fatty was overjoyed. After all, he had passed the exam. The teacher was diligently reviewing the file of some student. He was thinking about something for a long time. The kind-hearted teacher was thinking about Boulayer. The teacher was sure that the boy had no magical gift. The poor guy wouldn't even be able to create a microscopic fireball. The pitiful teacher decided to take pity on Boulayer. He didn't want his classmates to laugh at him once again. The elderly teacher joyfully announced that all the second-year students had passed the exam. The test was over. Suddenly, someone interrupted the good-natured teacher's speech. It was the annoying Batter. There was resentment and anger on Batter's face. He noted that the teacher, Antony, had missed one student. Batter began to resent him greatly, and demanded that Boulayer should also take the exam.